181. All right, everybody, welcome once again. Nice to have you all out here. Now, I'm sure the reason at least a few of you are here today is for the autumn views. We have, especially with the aspen trees, a very brief period every year. It's only about a couple of weeks, usually right around the 1st of October, where we really get the autumn colors out here. And this is that week, so for those of you here by accident, you definitely picked the right time to come. This is actually the time we do have a lot of local passengers, people that live nearby, and they can kind of pick and choose whenever they come. And whenever they ask us when they should come back, we always tell them to shoot for about the first week of October. So if you didn't know that, good for you. In case you're unaware, we have been in business since 1891. We've been open for a little over 134 years now. And the only time during all those years that we ever closed down was for a period between 2017 and 2021. A lot of our infrastructure, the tracks, the depot down there, and even the trains, a lot of that stuff was decades old, if not the original from the 1800s. So it was definitely time to do a little renovation here. So that renovation, it took about 3.5 years, cost a little over $100 million, but we did reopen on Memorial Day weekend back in 2021. So if you've been here before, but it was prior to 2017, I think you'll find this a little nicer, a little quieter, smoother, more comfortable. There's also a new building up at the summit, a brand new visitors center. We didn't really have anything to do with the building of that. We don't own it, but they also opened their doors back in 2021. So if you haven't seen that yet, the new one's a lot nicer than the old one. Now I think some introductions are in order. If you could all take a look up there to that uphill windshield. The young lady sitting there behind the control panel, that's our engineer today. Her name is Taylor, and don't let Taylor fool you. It's actually a lot harder to drive one of these trains than you think it is, especially when you've got hundreds of strangers on board. It does take a great deal of skill and competence. So Taylor's got her work cut out for her today. Let's all give her a nice round of applause. Yeah. All right, my name's Andy. I'll be your conductor today. I'll be giving a little bit of a narration on the way up. Now on the way down, we're going to hang up the mic. We'll just let you kick back, sit back and relax, take in these wonderful views out here. About half of you are going to fall asleep on the way down, and that's okay too if you'd like to do that. But at that time, when we're coming back down later on today, I'll be coming through the train to speak with everybody. At that point, let me know if you have any questions or if you need anything. Try to save those questions for a little bit later. And right now, what we need is for everybody to take a look to their left. Now, you better hurry up. You're going to miss it. Come on, to the left. That's left. All right. I don't think this is going to work out, folks. Why don't we do it like this? This side of the train over here, you'll notice that's got 3 seats on it. We'll call that the 3-seat side of the train. Sir, I need you out of that aisle. This side of the train over here has got 2 seats on it, so we'll call that the 2-seat side of the train. How does that sound? All right, very good. Now, you may have noticed on either side just a moment ago we've entered into Pike National Forest. And do we have anyone on the train today from the state of Delaware? Okay, that's very rare. Actually, Taylor and I were out here yesterday. We had 2 people on the same train from Delaware, but that doesn't come up too often. The reason I bring that up is because this forest actually takes up about 1.4 million acres. In other words, it's actually just a little bit larger than the entire state of Delaware is. Now this entire mountain from the bottom to the top is all made of one thing. It's a single piece of geology here, and it's called Pikes Peak granite. Now this rock structure is about 1 billion years old. It was actually pushed up out of the Earth's crust about 1 billion years old, and this is a mixture of mica, feldspar, and quartz. The feldspar is what gives it that mostly pink color. Now, many of these rocks, especially down here in the lower elevations, they appear to be gray or black or green, sometimes even orange. This is actually the moss and lichens. It's little organisms that cling to the surface of that rock, much like a coat of paint. But the rock itself is pink, and it's actually quite brittle. It's very easy to break apart. So you'll see a lot of formations out here today. Much of that was caused by wind and water erosion over many, many years. And we also have another thing going on here as far as the erosion. It's called ice wedging. Again, this rock is quite brittle. And when liquid water gets into it during a rain or a snow, later on at night when the sun goes down and we drop below freezing out here, that liquid water turns into solid ice, and ice takes up more space than water. And it causes it to break apart. Just like I'm sure at some point you put a glass bottle of liquid in your freezer at home, only to come back and find the glass exploded. Same thing happening here with the rocks. Now we're about to pass a large boulder here on the 2-seat side. Right after that, look just past it, here on the 2-seat side. And you'll see a good example of this ice wedging process. We call this next one diamond rock. Many times when ice wedging breaks apart a larger boulder, it leaves behind remnants that are a perfect geometric kind of crystalline patterns, kind of like diamond rock here. And it's always nice when we kind of have this haze of moisture out here in the forest. It definitely gives it a very interesting look. Perfect in time for Halloween, huh? Now, has anybody here been to a place called Elephant Rock State Park out in Missouri? All right, at least a few of you. So really, you've already been to Pikes Peak. That is the same structure, geological structure out there. They call it Elephant Rock. They don't call it Pikes Peak granite, but it is the same stuff. Came from the same place at the same time. It's just a few hundred miles away from here. Now, many years ago, before this was National Forest, people actually lived here on Pikes Peak. There's still a few little remains of old homes and cabins and things like that out here in the woods. Now, at one point there were two sisters that lived right in this area. Their names were Rose and Emma. And here in just a moment out there on the two-seat side, we're going to be passing by our first waterfall. Just look straight across there. This next waterfall, this is called Rose Emma Falls, named after those two local sisters. Now, if you're on the three-seat side, we don't want you to feel left out. We're going to pass another waterfall. We're going over a bridge right now. And the next waterfall will be on the three-seat side. This next one we call Minnehaha Falls, and that's a Lakota word that means something like laughing or dancing waters. So yes, we are open all year round, all 12 months. A lot of people ask about that. Naturally, our busiest season is in the summertime, and during the summertime we can potentially have as many as 15 departures in one single day. Now you may wonder how we handle all this traffic. After all, we've only really got one track that goes all the way to the top. Well, we have a few areas called switches and sidings, and think of these like temporary two-way streets where we can pass multiple trains. We'll be passing some trains later on today, but if you're on the three-seat side, you can look down at the ground and see the other set of tracks for a little while. And this is also a good time for you to introduce yourself to the person sitting across from you if you don't know them already, because here in just a moment, we're going to be climbing our first 25% grade of the day. Now what this means is that for every 100 feet we travel forward in a horizontal direction, we also travel vertically straight up into the air a full 25 feet. So this is awful steep, but this isn't even the steepest one we've got. We've got a few of them that are at least this steep. And this one even has its own name. We call it Son of a Gun Hill. And it got that name back when we used to run steam engines. One of the people who worked on a steam train was called the fireman. And it was the fireman's job to shovel the coal into the burner on the steam engine. And as you can imagine, even on a flat set of tracks, that would have really been hard work. But on a hill like this, it really got rather unreasonable. So that's where they came up with the name. That's not really the name. We've changed a little bit for your children that are here on the train today. But that's how I got the name Son of a Gun Hill, and here we go. You can even be able to feel the train struggle a little bit on a hill like this. Now those of you up there in row 1 next to Taylor, take a look all the way back down to row 57. Right now that's actually about a 4-story drop. That's about 40 feet vertically at this point. Our average grade here is actually about 16.5%, and the only places that are flat is the depot down below, the summit at the top where we're going to get out, and also inside of the workshop. Everything else here is on a steep grade. Now take a look out the two-seat side right next to the window there. I'll show you a frightening rock formation. We call this one Prop Rock because it's an enormous boulder sort of teetering out over the side of the train. All that weight is supported by only a couple of smaller rocks sort of shoved in underneath it. Now sooner or later gravity is going to win. That rock is going to tumble right across the tracks down the cliff on the other side, but it hasn't moved at least since 1889 when we first got here. So chances of it falling today are slim, but you still better keep your fingers crossed. As long as it stays there for a few more hours, we'll be fine. One of those cabins I mentioned earlier, you can see it out here on the hill on the 3-seat side. We don't know a lot about it. It's just a simple little one-room place that originally belonged to a fur trapper sometime around 1860. Now this area here we call the icebox. Usually it's colder in here, it's a lot shadier. Looks like we're actually breaking through the clouds at this point. But it's a little cooler and darker in here usually because of all the tall trees and canyon walls. And if you can believe it, the icebox here, this used to be the site of a grand hotel. It was called the Halfway House Hotel. They started as a sandwich stand back in 1882, developed into a large hotel. And before the place burned down in the 1920s, they had about 22 guest bedrooms. They had a ballroom, a dining hall. They had their own United States Post Office, had a train station for which we still had the tracks to and used them all the way up until 2017, and they even had their own bowling alley here. So the place did burn down in the mid-1920s. After that, all the remains of it were removed, so there's nothing really left of the building itself today. But coming up here in just a moment, we're going to pass a black and white sign. It's out here on the 3-seat side. It says Halfway House, and right behind that sign is where the hotel once stood. So if you've ever seen the lodge at Yellowstone, this was nowhere near as large, but it was kind of similar time frame, similar materials and architecture. Now up next, we're actually going to be going through a little town here. This town is called Ruxton Park, Colorado. It's got a population of 4, but that's only during the warmer months. It kind of looks like the people left about a week or 2 ago. So it's not always inhabited, but it is a legitimate town. They've got their own zip code and everything. And the reason this is here, and it's been here a long, long time, is because there's a hydroelectric power plant here in this town. We'll be passing it in just a couple of minutes here. It'll be on the 3-seat side. Look for the stone building. That's the plant. And they also don't run the plant all year round, only during the warmer months. Again, it looks like they were moving out about 2 weeks or so ago. But they had their 100th birthday in June. This power plant, this is the oldest one of its type still operating this side of the Mississippi River. And during the time of year that they do use it, it supplies electricity to about 200 local homes. I have read that it can actually support several times that, but they take it easy on it. After all, it is 100 years old. Probably not a bad place to live, huh? At least when the weather's warm. Now, if you take a look down this hill on the 3-seat side, you'll see a dirt road, and that is the only road that goes to Ruxton Park. It also wraps around all 9 of the lakes that we have here on Pikes Peak. We'll be seeing some more of it later. Now, if you were to take this road, stretch it out and measure it, it's actually 60 miles long because it's very windy and very hilly and only made of gravel. You really have to take your time and take it slow driving on it. So a simple trip to town would definitely be an all-day endeavor for the people that reside there at Ruxton Park. Up here above 9,000 feet, this is also where our aspen trees do their thing. They're very, very obvious today. These are the one with the gold yellow leaves out here. If you were to come back in just another week, every single last one of those leaves will have dried up and blown away, and they don't sprout their green leaves for summer again until about next June. Around the 1st of next October, the cycle will begin again, and people do visit the Rocky Mountains, Colorado in particular, from all over the world just this time of year to be able to get a glimpse of this. Now, the aspen tree is also the largest land organism on the planet, which probably sounds a little funny. After all, they're not particularly big, and there's thousands of them here in the forest. But really, folks, that's only one plant. Aspens are more closely related to plants like bamboo and grass than they are to other trees. So really, that's one tree. It's got a widespread system of roots deep under the ground. And when you've got one single tree that takes up a large space like this, that's what's called a grove, an aspen grove. And the largest known grove lies along the borders of Colorado and Utah. No other larger organism lives on land unless you count fungus. Because most of that tree is so deep under the ground, this makes them very resilient to forest fires as well. But probably what people like to see, at least just as much as this, is the wildlife. And yes, we do have quite a bit of wildlife here in a forest like this. Now, many of these animals, they know all about the terrain. They kind of avoid it. They can hear us and see us coming from a long way off, so you'll have to pay close attention in the trees. But we may run into some mule deer, wild turkey. We've got skunks, raccoons, and squirrels, porcupine, rabbits. We've got foxes, coyotes. We've got black bear, who are beginning their hibernation period right now. Don't let the name fool you. Black bears do come in all different colors. And now we don't have brown bears, also known as grizzly bears. They don't live here in this area, but we do have plenty of the black bears. Got bobcats, mountain lions, and we've even got a family of moose that lives nearby. It's not unusual to see them. This isn't typically the moose's range, but we have had one single family living here for about the last 10 years or so. And even though we've got some predators here and things with sharp teeth and claws, really the moose is what you've got to watch out for. That is by far the most dangerous animal here to people. They're very, very large, heavy. They can run way faster than anybody can. And they're territorial. One of our track workers about a month ago, he got run up a tree by a moose out here. And he had to hide in that tree, stay up there in the tree where the moose couldn't get him for about 2 hours until the moose finally lost interest and he was able to make a break for it. Now, when you've got a flat, grassy clearing kind of area in the middle of a forest, that's what's called a park. That's where the word park comes from. And we're about to enter into a little place called Deer Park. We got that name because we often see the mule deer grazing on this grass, especially around dawn. Now, do we have anybody on the train today from Wisconsin? All right, at least one of you. So our founder was actually a Kenosha man. In fact, at one point he was even the mayor of Kenosha, Wisconsin. His name was Simmons, and he was back here in the late 1880s. He was an inventor as well. And one of the things that he was working on was a telegraph system designed for some of the harsher climates on Earth, polar regions, places like that. Instead of going to polar regions, he came here to Pikes Peak. It's a lot closer and cheaper and more convenient. This is where he worked on his telegraph system because the climate in the higher elevations here is similar to what you would find in the Arctic. But what he saw up there, he did go to the summit, and what he saw really blew him away. He wanted everyone to be able to experience this place, but he also knew that 3 days on the back of a donkey, like he just did, that's how he got there. And he knew that that wouldn't be too practical for too many people, nor would a 12-hour one-way hike be. So he did the unthinkable. He came back here in 1889, decided to build a railway here. This was extremely high-tech and experimental at the time. In fact, it cost about $1.5 million. I'm not really sure how, but he did convince investors to fund the $1.5 million, and they got to work. It took about 3.5 years. It was finally completed in 1891, and we took our first passengers to the summit back in June of 1891. We're proud to say that we're still running strong today. But yeah, this was, I mean, it's an engineering marvel still today in 2025, so you can imagine what it was like in 1891. I often think of it like how civilians can pay to go into outer space today. That's probably about what this was like 134 years ago. It was also quite expensive. Our original ticket price was $5. That's not a lot of money today. You can't even buy lunch with that anymore. But in 1891, that was like more than an average American's weekly wage. We didn't even change the ticket price for about the first 40 years or so that we were around. And if you don't recognize the name ⁴ Simmons right offhand, trust me, everybody on the train knows who he was, and that's because at some point in your life, chances are very good that you spent the night on a Simmons brand mattress, which is still one of the most popular brands of mattress in the world today. Yes, that was founded by the same man that built this railway. Now, during about the next mile or so, folks, this is where the family of Moose lives, so pay extra special attention. Our tracks are 8.9 miles long from the bottom to the top. That makes us the longest one of these in the entire world. So far we've got about 4.5 miles, so we're just about halfway to the summit. We call this nice area Mountain View here. We've also got another switch and siding, and you may notice a little green building out here on the 3-seat side. So this actually used to be one of our carriage cars. This is what people would have ridden in the early days out here. When we decommissioned this train, we took the wheels and the frame out from under it, leaving behind this, basically it's a wooden box with glass windows. We stuck it out here as a weather shelter. The weather can do anything at any time out here. It can be very dangerous. There's actually a trail nearby. And we put this here as a shelter should anybody need to escape the elements. Ironically, folks, of all the generations of trains that we've ever had here, these were the only ones that had restrooms on board. And I use that term lightly. It was actually about a 2-square-foot closet down in the lower end of the train and the downhill end of it that had a hole in the floor, but we have not had anything even resembling a restroom ever since then. Now, Pikes Peak was named after United States Army Captain Zebulon Montgomery Pike. He was here back in 1805 because it was his mission to map out the southern boundary of the Louisiana Purchase. This was a very important historical land deal that President Thomas Jefferson made with Napoleon Bonaparte over in France at the time. France owned a big portion of North America. But old Napoleon, he was couldn't stay out of trouble over in Europe. They were constantly at war. Wars cost a lot of money. So he sold a huge chunk of this land to the United States at the time at a real bargain, basically doubling the land size of the United States at the time. So prior to this, the border between the French and Spanish territories was the Arkansas River, which runs west to east. It's about 50 miles south of here. And on the other side of that was Spanish territory. It was called New Spain. It would later on become the nation of Mexico. But that's the area that Pike was patrolling. And when he was in present-day Pueblo, Colorado on the Arkansas, that's when he first documented this peak. But his first two estimates were, he said that the mountain appeared to be at least 18,000 feet above sea level. He also said that he did not believe any mortal human would be able to withstand the conditions of a mountain that high. Well, today we know he was a little wrong about both of those statements. With modern satellite technology, we currently estimate that the mountain stands 14,115 feet above sea level. And not only have people been to the top of Pikes Peak, but we're actually the second most visited mountain in the entire world. The only mountain that has more visitors on a yearly basis than Pikes Peak would be Mount Fuji over in Japan. But guess what, folks? We're still thousands of feet higher than Fuji is. Now, Pike, he did not name this mountain after himself. He simply called it the Grand Peak. He was a little more humble about it. It was only after he passed on in 1812 that people began to commemorate him by naming this mountain Pikes Peak. Prior to his arrival, the place was called James Peak for a little while, after a mountaineer Edwin James, for whom there still is a James Peak named after in Colorado today, named after the same mountaineer. Hundreds of years before he arrived, during the era of Spanish exploration during the 16th and 17th centuries, what their name for it was when they arrived here. The Spanish called this place El Capitan, or the leader, because it's the highest mountain anywhere in the area. Hundreds of years before that, there was a time when the Ute tribe dominated the Rocky Mountain West. That's actually who the state of Utah is named after today, but the Ute lived here as well, and they called the place Tabacaba. In their language, that means Sun Mountain, and they named it that because this is the first object in the morning sky that the sun touches as it rises way out on the Great Plains in the east. But they weren't the first either, not by far. We've actually got evidence of Clovis peoples being here. Not a whole lot is known about the Clovis. They're assumed to be the very first human inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere. They've got remains that date back at least 10,000 years. Now science is saying that they may have been here as far back as 30,000 years ago. So that's a long, long time. And if they had a name for the place, I'm sure it's been erased to history. They also predate written language by thousands and thousands of years as well. Days like this are quite rare when we break the clouds like an airplane. This is very pretty up here. Getting a nice view down below of all those aspen trees with their golden colors amongst the evergreens down there in the forest. And if you see this outcropping of rocks out here on the three-seat side, we call that place the Lion's Den. Park rangers over the years have spotted several mountain lions sort of sunbathing on those rocks on hot days. For the most part, cats are cats around the world regardless of their size, and if you've got a cat at home, I bet that cat likes to lay in the windowsill when the sun's coming through it, or out on the hot pavement on the driveway on a warm day. Mountain lions are no different, and that's where they like to hang out, so that's why we call it the Lion's Den. Now, in 1893, we had another historical figure come visit us here. Her name was Catherine Lee Bates, and she was an English professor as well as an amateur poet. She was coming to visit from a place called Wellesley, Massachusetts, where she taught. Now, back in those days, you had a few ways to get to the summit. You could either hike to the top, just like you can today. You could take the train just like you can today if you trusted the outrageous technology and wanted to spend $5. Or your third option was that you could actually ride in a covered wagon that would have been pulled by mules, and that's the way Bates did it. She did go all the way out to the summit that day, and after her trip, when she got back to her hotel room, she was so inspired that she wrote a short poem. The title of that poem was America the Beautiful. Perhaps you've heard of it. So word got around about it. Her friends and colleagues thought it was great. Eventually somebody put it to a piece of sheet music called Materna. Today, of course, we all know the song, but you probably didn't know that's why it was written. And you really probably didn't know that this was almost the national anthem of the United States of America, having lost to the Star-Spangled Banner by only a few votes. Now, many parts of our railway today still coincide with that old wagon train, and right around this next curve, we're going to be at a place that we call Inspiration Point, and that's because this is the point that inspired Bates to write America the Beautiful. Again, everybody, it's just fine if you'd like to stand up. You're not going to want to miss it, but we really must insist that everybody stays out of that aisle so that no one gets hurt today. Now, also right out here on the two-seat side, and I've been around here for many, many years, but I just became aware of this summer. We've got a bear cave. It's down here on the two-seat side. It's easy to find. It's right next to the tracks, and the entrance is like the shape of a letter M. Now, I have never seen bears in here, but other people claim to have seen bears climbing in and out of this little entrance here in the side of the rocks. By the way, we're a little over 11,000 feet above sea level at this time.
The basket was only like 3 feet. So you felt like you were on the side.
Now, looking down the hill on the three-seat side, you'll notice a large body of water. That one is called Lake Moraine. It's one of 9 of the lakes up here on Pikes Peak, but this one is special. What makes it different from the others is that it's the only one that is naturally occurring. And yes, there is a dam on it. That dam wasn't put there until the early 1900s. You may notice a road going around that lake, and yes, that is the same road that we saw earlier going to Ruxton Park. But Lake Moraine is natural. This little valley right here that Lake Moraine sits in, that once upon a time during the last ice age was a glacier, which carved that valley, and then the whatever was left of it that melted, that's what originally formed Lake Moraine about 10 to 15,000 years ago. All of the other lakes that we'll see today are much more modern, and they were all man-made. And I understand there are fish in these lakes, but public access is denied. These are inaccessible to the public. They're patrolled and they're gated off. Now this is about the part of the journey where I've been asked many times why the trees are sideways up here. People ask if they've been hit by an avalanche, if there was a landslide, if the wind knocked them over, too much snow. No, I can assure you folks, these trees are all perfectly vertical, just like every other tree you've ever seen. Right now we're on another 25% grade. This train in your eyes, those are the ones that are at the funny angle here. To many people it makes kind of an optical illusion that makes the trees look like they're sideways. But here in just a few minutes, as we get to 11,500 feet, we won't have any more trees. This is something called tree line or timber line. The conditions up here are simply too harsh. This ground is actually frozen all year round, just inches below the surface. This entire area is typically covered with a few feet of snow for most of the year. Double-digit below zero temperatures, 100-mile-an-hour winds, we've got it all. But because of all these factors, trees can no longer grow up here. Now, if you look over on the next peak, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about from several miles away. That peak is called Mount El-Magre, also known as the Calendar Mountain, because it stands 12,365 feet above sea level, but you'll see why they call it a line. Because there is literally a line above which there are no more trees. Here on Pikes Peak, that takes place at 11,500 feet. So this 25% grade, this goes on for over a consecutive mile. One time about a year and a half ago, we actually had to come up here in the spring. Long story short, we had to shovel almost a mile of waist-deep snow up here, and if you think shoveling snow in your driveway at home is tough, try doing it at 11 or 12,000 feet. The whole thing, that took months. I got into shape that summer, but that's about all anybody got out of it. It was really, really hard work. We actually climb about 1.5 miles vertically between the depot and the summit. And that means we actually go through 5 different climate zones. Right now we're exiting the forest climate zones and we're entering into the subalpine, alpine, and Arctic climate zones up here. Because this is an entirely different climate, we've got a different food chain going on. That means different wildlife. So up here above tree line, see if you can spot some Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. We've got a subterranean rodent. It's a very large rodent, looks a lot like a beaver and about the same size. Those are called marmots. Typically they go into hibernation around Labor Day. This year I saw them as late as last week. We might still see some of them today. If you see a rabbit that's no larger than a mouse, that's called a pika. We have ground squirrels up here. We've got a herd of elk that migrate through this area during the summer. The large all-blackbird, which we're almost certain to see today, those are called Arctic raven. Many scientists recently are discovering that Arctic raven may very well be the most intelligent non-human species on the planet. There's a lot of research currently going into that.
Go ahead.
In fact, the natives that used to occupy this land, they used to believe that the ravens held supernatural abilities. And if you take a moment to study these amazing birds, you'll probably believe the same thing.
I think Rohit got this last week.
We also get eagles up here, mainly golden eagles, but once in a blue moon we'll even get bald eagles up here. That's really neat. Now this is an interesting place. Not only do we have the largest land organism with the aspen tree, not only do we have possibly the smartest living thing, but we've also got the oldest. Right here at the very end of tree line, we've got something called a bristlecone pine tree. These are the trees around us right now that appear to be half dead. Well, no, they're not really half dead. In fact, they've lived a very, very long time. We've got some bristlecone pines here on Pikes Peak that are well over 2,000 years old. But in the mountains of Southern California, bristlecone pine trees have been discovered that are almost 6,000 years old. And we don't really know of any. And amazingly, up here above tree line, we've got nothing but blue skies up here. You get above that cloud layer and the visibility is simply amazing up here. We can see for hundreds of miles. Here in a moment, we're going to be at a little place called Windy Point, and it is a well-deserved name. We regularly get winds up here in excess of 100 miles per hour. Luckily, today is nothing like that. The record that we know of is actually 188 miles per hour, but the thing about that is that it broke our equipment, so it's probably actually quite a bit higher than 188 miles per hour. There's a little building up here too. It'll be on the two-seat side. Little stone shack up here. So we've got what's called the section crew, and these are the men and women that come up here every day except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They take care of any repairs or maintenance that need to be done up here. So these days they go home at night, they come back in the morning and do it all over again. But back in the old days, the section crew actually used to live in this little stone building that we're about to see. In fact, one time a baby was even born in this building. His father, Bruce Taggart, was the section foreman. He was in charge of the crew. And little Johnny was born in this building. He actually came to work for us as well. And he was the last engineer that operated a steam train to the summit. That took place back in 1958. So we'll be making a little bit of a stop here, folks. We need to pass another train. So just for the time being, if you could all take your seats. Once we stop up here, we're going to be taking a little break. And once we leave Windy Point here, we've only got about another 15 minutes or so before we reach the summit. So we've got a few important things we need to go over. If I could get everybody's attention, car 3. If you could hear me, give me a thumbs up. Car 2. And car 1 up there. All right, very good, everybody. Now, at this point, take out your watch, your phone, whatever you're using to tell time today. We're going to compare it with mine. Now, this watch right here, believe it or not, this is a magic watch. And what's so special about it is that it's never, ever wrong. And right now, my magic watch says that it's exactly 11:30 a.m. Make sure that yours says the same thing, that you're not in a different time zone or something like that. And what you're going to want to do is set your alarm to 12:30 p.m., 12:30, because this train is going to be leaving the summit at 12:40. And if you're not in your seat, just like every other bus or airplane or boat you've ever been on, no, we don't make the other 200 people wait for you. So we are going to leave on time at 12:40. If you set your alarm for 12:30, that'll give you 10 minutes to wrap up whatever you're doing and start heading back to your seat. Now, by now, I'm sure many of you are wondering about the restroom situation, and don't worry, there is a brand new facility up there with plenty of restrooms in it. And you probably should prioritize this, folks. The ride down takes just as long as the ride up did. And again, there are no restrooms on the train, so be sure to take care of the restroom while you can. They've also, of course, got the gift bar, the snack bar, the gift shop, all that good stuff up there. I want to let you know, though, that we don't own or operate this building. There's going to be a lot of other people up here today that didn't come up on the train. And what I'm getting at is those lines are going to be long. You need to use your time wisely, as it is somewhat limited. And if you're going to the top of a 14,000-foot mountain to buy donuts, that's your prerogative. But I want to let you know that you probably won't have time for a whole lot else, so keep that in mind. Also, if you do, and once we get rolling here, we've only got about another 15 minutes or so to go.
Here comes train number 2.
There it comes. Stand in there. It's lovely. Yeah, but this site is nice. That's very good.
Let's see how many people are asleep here. There's our friend Seth. This isn't the type of soil that you would want to use and expect anything to grow in, and you'd be right. It's basically just rock and gravel up here at this elevation, and it's frozen just below the surface all year round. It never really thaws out. It's called permafrost. Now, how this Arctic tundra does it is it actually makes its own topsoil underneath itself. It does this by excreting acid into the rock. This is a very, very slow process. It takes this Arctic tundra 100 years to spread just one single inch. It even sprouts little flowers of multiple colors for about a month during July typically. And it's also the food chain, the base of the food chain up here. Other than some predatory birds, everybody that lives up here, that's the only thing they have to eat. Now you may notice here and there on the 3-seat side between here and the summit what appears to be a road, and that's exactly what that is. I had mentioned earlier that people over 100 years ago used to be able to take a wagon up to the summit. That's the old wagon trail that you're looking at. I'm sure they didn't know a whole lot about Arctic tundra and how it works back then. So they built a road right through it because this grass grows so incredibly slow. That's why that trail is still visible today, and it'll still be visible hundreds of years from today. Now if you look out there to the west, this is really cool. They're actually poking up above the clouds over there. You can see those blue mountainous peaks out there on the horizon. That direction is west, and you're looking at the Rocky Mountains. Basically, you've got the Great Divide poking out over those clouds. And the Great Divide, it runs all the way through both of the Americas, North and South America, and it divides the water. That's why they call it the Divide. Any moisture that lands on this side of those peaks, be it through rain or snow or hail or whatever, that eventually makes its way east through rivers and streams all the way out into the Mississippi River, Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic. Any moisture that lands on the other side, the west side of those peaks, will find its way eventually back out into the Pacific to the west. And yes, some of those peaks are actually hundreds of miles away from us. Now coming up here on the 2-seat side, we're coming into a place called the Saddle. And this is the only place on Pikes Peak, including the summit, where we can see both east and west at the same time. So 3-seat side, that is west. And we're about to be able to see out into the east again. So if you missed Inspiration Point earlier, we've got the same view here at the Saddle, but this time it'll be on the 2-seat side of the train. That's actually the Great Plains of America out there to the east. Basically, we built this railway twice. The first time back in the 1880s and 90s, and this last time between 2017 and 2021. The job was actually the same, but the methods during that century of progress, they changed quite a bit. The first time around, it was basically done by hand. It took about 1,000 workers, a lot of muscle. All they had at their disposal was hammers and shovels and picks, things like that. They also utilized quite a few donkeys in the construction of this place, and they used dynamite back in the 1800s as well. Now, dynamite can be very volatile. I'm sure in 1890 it was extremely volatile, probably wasn't made quite the same way it is today, so it was very, very dangerous. We did have our share of accidents and even fatalities during the construction of this. This time around, we had, it was about 1,000 workers, and we had the luxury of trucks, track vehicles, giant bulldozers, things like that to help with the job. But back to the first time around, again, we did have some fatalities. Now, one story is that a donkey was carrying a box of dynamite on its back. It was right here in this area. Now, that dynamite went off prematurely. It actually exploded. It blew that poor donkey to bits, as well as 2 of our men. Now, those men were given back to their next of kin, wherever they may have been from, for a proper burial, but that old donkey was buried right where the remainder of him anyway lay, and that's coming right up. You'll be able to see on the 2-seat side, lying right next to the track, a gravel mound, a donkey-sized gravel mound with a cross on it. The cross is made of an old pickaxe there, and that is actually a gravesite of the donkey. Because the ground is frozen up here, it's usually buried in plenty of ice and snow, and the often sub-zero temperatures. That old donkey is probably in about the same shape he was the day we buried him. Now, if you take a look a couple of hills over there poking out of the clouds, you'll see one mountain that doesn't match the others. Nothing is growing on it, for one thing, and it's so clear between here and there that you can actually make out little buildings and pieces of equipment down there. That's actually the 3rd most lucrative gold mine in the entire world. It's called the Victor and Cripple Creek Gold Mine, and they first opened back in 1890. They still get a lot of use out of that to this day. In fact, it produces about $1 million worth of gold on a daily basis. Alright folks, we also have our own ghost story here. The year was 1911. It was actually the month of August. It was still officially summer. And we had a couple here visiting from Texas. They were on their honeymoon. Mr. and Mrs. Skinner. They were attempting to hike to the summit of Pikes Peak for their honeymoon. Now again, the weather can do anything, anytime here, any time of year, any time of day, and even though it was August, they didn't quite make it, and it's a real shame because they were just a stone's throw from the summit at the time. That's the spot where Mr. and Mrs. Skinner got caught in that blizzard. They froze to death. Now, sometime later, our section crew discovered their bodies. There is a marker out here. It's not actually a grave, but you'll see a little wooden cross there in the rocks, right out the two-seat side, and about the same place that the donkey's grave is. That's the place actually where their bodies were discovered. Now, since this was way before the internet or telephones or even photo IDs, it was a lot tougher to identify people back then and to figure out who to contact about the incident. So when we were going through Mr. Skinner's pocket, that's when we discovered a note. On the note said, "Have fun in Colorado, congratulations on your wedding. Try not to freeze to death." It was meant only, of course, to be a joke. After all, it was August, and I'm sure down there in Texas where the brother lived, it was probably in the hundreds. So it was only meant as a simple joke with a very cruel twist of irony. Now this is the spot where they happened. Eventually, we did discover their next of kin. Got a hold of them. They were taken back home for a proper burial. So their bodies aren't here anymore. However, on full moon nights, which I believe may have been last night if I'm not mistaken, it said that the spirits of Mr. and Mrs. Skinner can still be seen here on the hillside, attempting to finish their hike to the summit. Coming into view shortly straight up ahead is the Pikes Peak Highway. Yes, there is actually a toll road that you can take to get to the summit of Pikes Peak. It begins in a town called Cascade. It's a few miles west of Manitou Springs on Highway 24. And on just about every train, I always have at least one person tell me they've driven it before. And pretty much just as often they tell me that's why they're on the train today instead. If you choose to do this, I would highly recommend getting a rental car or a borrowed car, because it's actually so hard on your vehicle that this is the road here in America. The many manufacturers of motorcycles and cars, this is where they test their products for durability up here. There are over 150 hairpin turns. It's got 0 guardrails to keep you from going over the edge. So it'll typically take over an hour to drive this short 20-mile road. I see a few cars up there today. Now this is also the site of America's second oldest auto race. It's called the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. We host it here every year during the month of June, again because of the volatility of the weather. Many years it's postponed or canceled. Sometimes they only do kind of a half race, which was the case here in 2025 a few months ago. But this is where world-class rally drivers come from all over the world to test their mettle against the clock. Strangely enough, this sport seems to be a lot more popular in places like Europe and Japan than it is here right in our backyard where we actually hold the race. But it is highly popular around the world. The only older race in America would be the Indy 500. right, so we're just about done, everybody. Let's just recap what we talked about earlier. Car number 1, if you can repeat what time this train leaves.
12:40.
12:40, very good. Now, cars 2 and 3 down this way. Can you tell me what time the train leaves? Okay, excellent. Be sure to use those restrooms, folks. Outside food and drink is not allowed on the train. Use your time wisely. Be sure to do what you came here to do, whatever that may be. Now we're going to be stopping in just a moment, so if everybody could take your seat just for now. Stay seated until you hear Taylor honk the horn. That's your indication that the brake is set and that it's safe to stand up. Watch your step as you exit, especially if you've got small children in your group. Taylor, I need to run in real quick as soon as we stop.
We looked our sunglasses and we thought, oh, there's
All right, everyone, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the stunning 14,115-foot summit of Pikes Peak. We sure picked a nice day to be up here.
저러니까 이거가